Welcome back, Insomniacs. It's Curious Cyclops.
And Steve.
And today we have a very good topic that has been getting heated online, it seems like.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about the Suspiria remake. So obviously, when we first heard the news that Suspiria was being remade, what was your initial reaction?
Oh, just no. Just like a why.
Yeah, first of all, I was surprised that, because we're used to American horror remakes mainly, right?
Right.
So when I heard that not only were they remaking a classic Italian film, but it was a Dario Argento horror film, I'm like, what? They're remaking Suspiria? Like, how fucking random. Second of all, why? 'Cause
right.
it's one of those perfect horror movies that you can't really improve upon.
Exactly.
So, obviously, our initial reaction, I would say, maybe was a bit protective. I'm like,
absolutely.
Why are you doing this? Like, no, don't ruin Suspiria. So, we didn't know what to think, and they released, like, a couple of teaser images, like, generic poster art.
Yeah.
But eventually, they released a couple trailers. So, when I first saw the trailer, right away I noticed that the colors, obviously everyone's talking about how they're really mute.
Yeah.
And it seems like they went out of their way to make sure it wasn't colorful and bright.
Right.
Like the original Suspiria. Because, of course they want to be different and all that. So, but it was still surprising that they were like, okay, we're just going to get rid of all the color and make it bland. But what did you think about that?
It's... like, I had the similar feeling, obviously. Like, the muted color palette, right away, I'm like, oh, this is looking like what's become popular now, the like really muted, like shitty art house stuff, like The Witch and stuff like that, like, and it's just so against what the original Suspiria was. That it was a fucking visual juggernaut, dude. That movie is gorgeous, and like you'll hear these excuses of like, oh well, we were just trying to differentiate ourselves or kind of make it our own, and it's like, oh really? You were trying to make something different than Suspiria and make your own thing? Then make a different fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like,
and plus, we could always use more witch movies.
Right.
But come on, remaking Suspiria. But, another thought I had was, I forget the girl's name. She's from 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, I was surprised when I found out that she was going to be the lead role.
Yeah.
So, definitely some surprising stuff. And like what you were saying about like the style, definitely muted, and it's kind of weird because do you know how when it comes to like to the newer art house stuff that's been really trending, before we even heard about the Suspiria remake, I would joke like, oh yeah, all of them are trying to be Dario Argento,
right?
Like let's say Neon Demon, for instance, they used the really unnatural, colorful lights, which Suspiria was so well known for, because they're like, okay, like why are there red and blue lights everywhere? Like it's not realistic. Well, guess what? Suspiria was supposed to be dreamy like that.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of, I would say, newer art house directors pulled a lot from Dario Argento's style.
Right.
So it was just it was almost like a little too obvious that we're like, oh, we're just going to remake Suspiria while this trend is going on with like the art house kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I know Suspiria obviously influenced art house a lot of time, because some people say it's like one of the first art house horror films, even though that term I don't think was as known back then.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like it's just bad timing to remake it.
Yeah, and then I feel like at the same time as the trailer was coming out and you were getting more information about the movie, they had announced the runtime and had said that it was going to be either like right around 2 hours or a little over 2 hours, and the original Suspiria is like barely an hour and a half. So you think like, oh, we're adding 30, 40 more minutes onto this story, so like what extra bullshit are you going to add to it?
I don't know why I have this feeling, but I have a feeling they're going to waste a lot of time on actually showing us the ballerinas and shit. I don't know, just because of the whole art house thing that we're talking about. I was like,
yeah,
they're probably going to Black Swan this shit. Like, show us like half an hour of the girls dancing, like, oh, maybe there's like weird, like, swirls going on. I don't fucking know what they're doing. But so besides our initial reaction and seeing the trailer and kind of not quite liking what we saw, the third thing I want to talk about is the soundtrack. Obviously, we were talking about how visually important Suspiria was and how it impacted so many people. Half of the reason why it's so well known is because Goblin scored that movie,
Right.
and people actually consider it Goblin's like best and most popular score, because even though they have their own music, they're known for scoring horror films.
Right.
Well, now instead of Goblin, we have Tom York from Radiohead, and I was trying to be open-minded. At first, I was like, oh, well, I don't really like Radiohead. I'm not a fan.
Right.
But hey, maybe he can score it.
Yeah.
So, I was still trying to be open-minded, even though it was weird and almost raised a flag. So, Tom York eventually released the song Suspirium, and then just recently he released Has Ended.
Yeah.
So there are two songs off of the Suspiria soundtrack, and you brought up a good point that it's seeming more like a soundtrack than a score.
Right.
Can you explain a bit of that?
Yeah, that's what I had thought when we first heard that Tom York was attached, that he was just scoring the movie. And it's like, all right, as much as you don't like Radiohead, it's not like it's a Radiohead album. Like, he's just doing instrumentals. And even, I'll give him that on these tracks, the instrumentals, they're not terrible. They're not similar to what Goblin did, but
totally different.
They're not awful either. But then we heard him singing on these tracks, and it's like, well, did you just write a new Radiohead album and base it around this movie? Like, it's not like you said you were looking up the lyrics even, and it's not like the lyrics have anything to do with the movie.
Like, it's kind of like, to be honest, for instance, my girlfriend's a big Radiohead fan, so I've heard Radiohead for years now straight, because she always plays it. I've heard his other group, Atoms for Peace. I heard his solo shit, which is Tom York. From what I heard from these two songs, it doesn't sound any different than that stuff.
Right.
Like, it has like the kind of experimental stuff. It has his vocals, which are like the well, that's exactly what he's doing on this.
Yep.
And a lot of people I saw even locally were surprised, like, he's singing on the songs for the movie?
Yeah.
So, and you actually dug up that they released a track list.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of song titles, and some of those could be the scores for all we know. But we heard from a local guy who apparently saw an advanced screening that he said, it sucked. Tom York is singing over the whole damn movie. So, if what he says is true, and I don't know why he would go out of his way to lie.
Right, exactly.
So, from what he's saying, you're going to hear a lot of Tom York singing over Suspiria. And here's the thing, if you're a Radiohead fan, guess what? You just hit the jackpot.
Yeah, right.
Maybe you didn't even know Suspiria, but now you're going to be hearing about it for the first time and seeing the remake for the first time with your hero, Tom York, doing the music and singing and shit. But here's the flip side. If you're not a Radiohead fan, it might ruin the experience for you. Like, I already told a couple of my friends, I'm concerned because I'm not a Radiohead fan. I don't really like the music. It's not my cup of tea. So here's the thing. Now I'm going to have to put up with a whole fucking Radiohead CD pretty much during the movie. And I was a little worried that if there is any chance of me liking it, it might get ruined by the soundtrack.
And that's the thing. Like, I feel like this whole episode has just been like kind of a smear. Just like, oh, I don't like this, and then I didn't like this, and I didn't like this. And just for the record, we're still somehow maintaining like a cautious optimism. Like, I think we're both going into this like hoping that we are proven wrong and like this movie.
Yeah, because I didn't necessarily think that I was going to love Evil Dead and It. And okay, guys, I know It wasn't quite a remake, whatever. But here's the thing. All I'm trying to say is I didn't expect to love those movies, and I love them. So guess what? I could love Suspiria.
Yeah.
It might take me by surprise, just like Evil Dead. I was like, wow, I didn't expect to like it so much. But I could only judge by what I've seen and what I've heard. I don't like what I've seen in the trailer. I don't like what I heard from the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And the visuals and the soundtrack, as we already discussed, those are the two strongest parts of the original.
Right.
So if you don't have that in the remake, what do you have?
Exactly.
You have Dakota Johnson, a butt plug Easter egg, and Helena Marcos singing the chorus to Creep. That's what you're left with.
Yep.
But I don't know, guys. And like we said earlier, it's a really heated debate. So obviously our word isn't the golden standard. Like, you could have your own opinion and we could have ours, but we wanted to be honest with you guys. We didn't want to be like, oh, we think this and that, and it might be all right. No, we want to give you our honest opinion as passionate fans of Suspiria. So, we could just be honest and see what you guys think. So, tell us, what do you think about the Suspiria remake? Are you hopeful for it? Do you think it's going to suck? What do you think about Tom York doing the soundtrack? That's going to wrap up this episode. Curious Cyclops.
And Steve.
Thank you for watching Never Sleep Again TV.